proud members of the Fan First Sports Network. When he talks, we just go, it just makes us feel all tingly inside.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, please tell us another story.
Just like Steve posted on Twitter today and tagged us in. What up, Steve? And he posted, he's like, thanks for the story, Dad, or something like that. like he goes, oh, after that press conference, I felt better. And it is, I mean, Rhule spoke for 38 minutes today. He definitely put a lot of questions to bed.
45, 40, 35, 40, he's gonna go! It's time, people, feel it!
Big Red Junkies.
Day by day, he gets better and better! If we die, we die!
Man is putting a child in that. Put him in the aisle.
Bring that trophy back to Lincoln!
I don't have a beer.
No beer. But guess what? We had a press conference today that Matt Rhule decided to bring everybody back down to earth and have everybody quit freaking out about.
About what? Is something going on?
Something, just a little bit.
Can't just have a relaxing week.
Wait, I'm sorry. Who do we follow?
Yeah.
Who do we talk about?
I want 1 week. Oh, it's Christmas time. I want 1 week.
But you can't even get that in April.
That fucking
that's
true.
you got your 1 week after Northern Iowa. That was it.
Fuck.
Oh,
That's the only time we get it.
I mean, even during the bye weeks, we had shit going
I
on.
know.
I mean, it's just,
I know. I just. I don't know.
Since we last spoke on Sunday night to recap a Friday game,
3 days ago.
It's Wednesday, folks.
Tony White announced that he's leaving.
Mm-hmm.
Makes me sad.
Terrence Knighton has announced that he's leaving.
Yep.
Jamari
Still
Butler,
sad, less
11
sad.
days after he let Rhule know that he's coming back for sure next year, decides to jump in the portal.
Well, he's coming back to football.
He's playing college football, but not here. It's most likely going to be Florida State if he can get down there.
Whether the
You
road's blocked or
You got a lot of attrition that's happened, and it's going to continue to happen, as Rhule alluded to in the press conference today. But so you lose two of the probably three stalwarts on the defensive side that everybody was really, really hoping were going to stick around.
Mhm.
Jed made the perfect point, though.
As I usually do.
Everybody was wildly like. Let's just start with the Tony White stuff and work our way through the week so far. By the way, it's Wednesday night.
Yeah,
it's Wednesday night, and we have what's probably going to be at least a 40-minute show of stuff worth to talk about in just basically 2.5 fucking days. But the Tony White departure, it wasn't that it was a surprise to anybody that it was going to happen, because we all kind of had this expectation going through basically from the midpoint of last year.
yeah, we all thought it was going to be 2 years and he was going to be somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I think the biggest thing that caught everybody off guard is him taking what in a lot of people's minds was either a lateral or a step down move. I don't agree with that.
I don't either.
We'll get there.
I think it was a step up, but
I do too. Well, from the standpoint of
okay. When I say step up, do I think it's like this? No.
No.
It's a slight step up. I could see if somebody wants to say it's a lateral move. That's fine. I also think that most of it's an opinion-based thing, depending on how you want to look at it. The situation at Florida State and or in college football in general, in my opinion, it is a slight step up. But
there's gives and takes, right?
Yeah.
Their financial situation isn't near as clean and steady as ours is. But their recruiting situation is a fuck ton easier.
Yeah.
You're in fucking Florida.
Yeah.
Ask Scott Frost about the difference between recruiting at UCF and recruiting here.
Yep.
There's a giant advantage there.
Plus, I mean, he's pretty much building up from ground zero when he gets there because their defense was atrocious this year.
Well, the whole team was.
And that's another one of those things where, you know, everybody's tried to poke holes and find where's his motive here? What was the reason behind this? And even me, like from the very get was like, you know what, that conversation where Rhule stood in the middle of John Butler and him going at it on the sideline during the UCLA game, and then they wound up calling the play the way that John Butler wanted to call the play. Maybe that was the last straw. Like, that's where my mind instantly went, was that he was disgruntled and so he left. Now that I've had some time to process it and think about it and hear a boatload of opinions on why, that includes some insider people saying he definitely wasn't pissed off. This was just a move that he felt was better for him, so he did it. That it wasn't being disgruntled, it wasn't being upset. That's not necessarily what I heard about why Terrence Knighton left. I heard that actually goes back to the Evan Cooper dismissal, and that it had way more to do with the fact that Matt Rhule wasn't really in control of the Evan Cooper stuff, and he didn't like that. It rubbed him the wrong way, and he was going to get out one way or the other.
And like I told you, I thought Knighton was leaving with Tony White wherever he went anyway.
Yeah.
So whether all that stuff is true or not, I have no idea. I don't think it really matters. I think that is kind of a I wanted to say convenient excuse, but I don't mean that in a harsh way that it typically comes out as when people say those types of things. But you can use that as part of the reasons. I think the bigger reason was he was going to go with Tony White no matter what.
Sure. Yeah. And I don't disagree with you whatsoever. I think one of the things that I kind of came to this morning was looking at what we had when he came in. We had a very old defense. We had one of the oldest defensive units in the Big Ten, in the country, in fact. He had some studs built at each level, really, for him to come in and really be able to be successful as long as he was a good coach. And I'm not trying to say any of this to take away from what Tony White did, but if a lot of people might remember that just 2 years, the year before Chenander and Frost and all those guys went bye-bye, Chenander was being talked about as, we got to pay this guy because he's going to leave us for a head coaching job somewhere because he had one mediocre year. He was better than 50%, and all of a sudden everybody's like, Chenander's fixing the defense. We got to fix him. And then they were down again and he got fired mid-season or whatever the fuck it was. But as far as where our defense was with the upperclassmen that were there at every level, ready to come in, Nash and Ty were here. They were slightly underperforming, so all you had to have was a position coach that was ready to take them on and make them into the next thing. You had, I think, the strength and training, the strength and conditioning side of things probably had as much to do with those guys on defense taking that next step as the coaching did. Because they just weren't getting it.
Absolutely.
And so my thought is,
because they fixed guys like you were talking about with Nash Hutmaker and Ty Robinson and stuff like that.
Yeah, they just turned them into the players they were supposed to be.
Well, and they helped them get over the injuries. They helped them identify their playing weight, things like that. We talked about at the beginning of the season, these guys are coming in not with a range that's 10 to 15 pounds that they have to be in. It was an exact pound that they needed to play at.
Yeah, it was like a point of they had within less than a pound of bandwidth. They were like, no, you're going to be here.
Yeah. It was like a literal boxing or MMA weight class.
That type of a deal. You better make weight, motherfucker, but it's a daily thing. This isn't a show up and then you can go carbo load afterwards.
You're going to run until you're that weight. If you get to practice and you're not that weight.
Go take another shit.
Yeah.
Or another lap.
But I guess I'm taking a long time to get to my point here, but my point is this. When you have a coordinator that's made one or two stops at coordinator prior and he's worked his way up and now he's at a big boy blue blood university, whether or not people from other schools want to agree with us, Nebraska's still a blue blood program. It's a blue blood name for sure. And if you coach at Nebraska, you have a spotlight on you.
Yep.
Period.
Anybody who knows football knows better than that.
Yes. And so he had gotten to that spot. He got here. He was a rising star coach who all of a sudden, Matt Rhule kind of took him from, hey, you're on a good trajectory up to skyrocket, sky's the limit. We're going to go ahead and get you into a head coaching job. He didn't take one last year. And then the defense this year, we talked about this preseason. Hey, they might statistically look the same or regress slightly because we're playing better teams this year. I think
that's what I said.
I think those things happened, but they also didn't play as well, especially on the back end. We had guys just not play as well.
Well, they had moments. I mean,
it was Ohio State, Iowa.
Yeah.
I also think Tony White, at least in my opinion, he seems like he's smart enough to know when he is and isn't ready to go do something. He doesn't want to make that jump into being a head coach if he's not quite there yet. He's only been a defensive coordinator for 4 years.
Well, he said no to his alma mater last year.
Yeah.
Because of the shitty situation that UCLA was in.
Yeah.
So he knows where to go and when to go.
He's very much present and not just in his feels about what he's doing. Mm-hmm. This was a calculated move. And I think for him, he's moving, in my opinion, it's a pretty lateral move, but it's still a big boy school.
Yeah. It's very comfortable.
he's moving to another situation where he can make them better again and continue to grow that part of him to where he's going to be comfortable enough to be a head coach. He also might not want to go somewhere like Ball State and be a head coach. And, it's really difficult to turn one of those programs into a winner.
Yeah.
Build your resume up a little more and then get into a situation where you're a little more middle of the road team instead of bottom of the barrel and work your way up.
Doing something like this, you said build your resume up. It's not just building his resume. He's also building his network.
Yeah.
Being able to coach with different coaches, to be able to get that tree, to be able to expand it when he is able to take that head coaching job. He has so many more voices he can talk to as far as bringing in assistant coaches.
Not to mention
that's what he's doing.
That Florida footprint in recruiting is always a big thing.
Open up those doors up for
100%.
high school coaches.
Yeah.
And, come on.
Get yourself in the area every single week all year long.
Yeah.
But the other side of it that I was going to get to is that Nebraska is going to take a step back defensively as far as seniority goes this year. There might be a little bit of a regression. And because he wasn't able to take the defense another step this past year, maybe he saw the writing on the wall. Hey, I'm going to lose a bunch of these upperclassmen guys. I don't want my rocket ship that's been on this trajectory to take any sort of a slip. I can go down, take a team that was 11-1 last year, and that went 2-8, 2-10 this year. That's absolute turmoil. Coaches on the hot seat. They've got the talent in the room already. They just need to pick back up and get the ear back of the players. That could easily be a 10-win team again next year, especially if they're still in the ACC.
Maybe he thinks that he can get in there and make the defense good, and the offense will still suck, and he can just slide into that head coach.
There's always that possibility too. I'm just saying.
We know who the next coach at Florida State's going to be.
I know.
No, because he's going to be at Dallas.
No, he won't.
What my whole point of this was though was to keep his ship going straight up is kind of why I think he made this move. That's just me personally. It really doesn't matter because he's gone.
Well, and also Rhule said he wanted to go back home. He's from Florida. He was born.
Yeah.
He said that stuff, and I get that the way Rhule talks about everything in such great detail. The way that he talked about that specifically, he kind of glossed over.
Well, and
you could tell he wasn't.
I'm not trying to say that that's one of the biggest factors, but it's another layer in the factors of reasons as to
they're also
that opportunity to go home, opportunity to go to a big boy school. Also,
and there was no way that he was going to keep both Tony White and John Butler on the staff at the same time.
But I don't see John Butler staying here if he doesn't get the head guy's job.
That's what I mean. There was no way they were both staying anyway. So if we didn't see Tony White leave, we would have seen John Butler leave.
Yeah, I think whether or not Butler stays, even without getting that job, is going to be based on whoever on the defensive coordinator. Kind of like what they're doing with Holgorsen, where he's allowing him to bring in whoever he wants. If the new defensive coordinator wants John Butler and John Butler wants to stay, then Butler will be here.
Oh no, I get that. I'm talking about John Butler himself wanting to. He got passed over for a promotion to D coordinator at the Bills. That's why he told them to go fuck themselves, and he left.
He wants that position.
That's the only reason he was available.
If he's not our next D coordinator, he won't be here.
Yeah, he made this move to come do this. I agree with you on the we'll see, because he also didn't coach. His position group didn't play well enough last year to get him a D coordinator spot, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But
I also don't necessarily I'm not saying you are doing this, but I also don't necessarily put all of that on him because of the short nature of him coming in, also the inexperience that they had in the secondary for this year, the injuries that they had in the secondary this year. He was, for lack of a better analogy, he was dealt a bad hand this year for 1,000 different reasons. Some of them were his fault. It is what it is, but he wasn't put in the best position.
He also only had one dude that was the body type that he likes to coach that was healthy, because Tommy Hill fits that.
Absolutely.
Fits what he likes to do at corner. But the only other guy that he had back there that was a size that he likes to coach is Singleton. Mm-hmm. And that's it. And he had Singleton for 1 year. That was it. And he got here, 5 weeks before the season started, something like that?
End of July, something, or August, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it, for me, I guess we're kind of, we were going to walk through the week, but talking about the replacement for Tony White, I mean, do you have thoughts? Do you have ideas on who you think it would be, or who you'd ideally like to see us come in that's realistic?
Well, I think John Butler's the obvious one in the room for me.
He's the one that's in the room, yeah.
He's going to be the D coordinator for the bowl game. Rhule practically said it. One of the reasons they brought John in was in case Tony White left.
Yeah.
They clearly, at least in my opinion, had some foresight into let's bring him in, let's get him to be a part of the team so that he can just step into this role when the time comes. So I think he's got to be the clear number one choice, in my opinion.
I don't think that he's the clear number one choice. I don't even know for sure if he is the number one choice. It's kind of funny listening to a bunch of professionals.
Not us?
It's, well, other than us, yes. It's almost 50-50 as far as people that think that we're going to go outside and people that think we're going to go inside. We're going to stay inside with John Butler. It's pretty crazy how many different opinions there are with the direction that they're going to go with this job.
Yeah. Is that because of people's opinions of John Butler, or is that because of what people think of what Rhule has said?
I think it's more also an opinion of the options that are out there of possibilities. You know, you got a Ryan Walters that just got fired from Purdue, who's a great defensive coordinator. I don't care what he did as a head coach. Possibly a Jim Leonard, who was at Wisconsin, player and coach at Wisconsin.
He's fixed the DBs at the Broncos right now.
It helps when you have Surtain, but yeah.
It definitely doesn't hurt.
You've got one of Rhule's really good friends, Jeff Collins, who is out of a job now at North Carolina with Mac Brown being fired. There's a handful of other guys that I'm completely brain farting on that like are really good options of people. Elijah Robinson up at Syracuse, who's a great recruiter.
A lot of people were talking about it wanting when Rhule got hired.
Yeah,
he was the Texas A&M D line coach. He was Elijah Judy's D line coach at Texas A&M, and he ended up taking that Syracuse job when Matt Rhule hired Tony White.
He was also responsible for bringing in a lot of those big name players that Jimbo Fisher fucked over.
Yeah, he's a big time recruiter.
Yeah, he
big time recruiter. I don't know how he is schematically. I don't know what he fits, because it was interesting today in the press conference. Rhule said it out loud. He said, "I want to stay in this multiple look 3-3-5 style defense," which I was actually surprised by, because you heard him talk earlier in the year about running bear and quarters and all these different things, and it almost seemed like with some of the stuff he said, especially the first half of the season, was like, hey, there's going to be some schematic things that are a little bit different and a little bit bigger, more traditional sets that we're going to run out there this year. So for him to come back and say, this is what I want to run, that's another reason that pointed to me that maybe John Butler's not the dude, or he at least needs to see how he's going to game plan, because John Butler is a 4-3 guy. Like, that's the style that he always coached in with the Bills, that he's coached in prior to. It's always been that's what he ran at Penn State when he was a D coordinator.
I don't really get caught up in the whole numbers of 4-3, 3-4, 3-3-5, but because, I mean, hell, look at the defense the last 2 years, 3-3-5, fine. You can say 3-3-5 all you want to.
A multiple.
No, I'm just saying in a general sense.
Yeah.
I don't get caught up in that. You talk about schematics, just in general. What are your schematics? What can you do? Everybody wants to talk about Holgorsen being part of the air raid tree. He's not necessarily an air raid guy anymore.
He talked about that today.
So it's everybody gets so caught up in the titles and those types of things and the overarching philosophies that they don't get into the weeds of like what they actually do. Like, again, the 3-3-5 for Tony White the last 2 years at Nebraska. I mean, I don't have the number, but how many times did we have 4 down linemen? How many times did we have 3 down linemen?
Or 5 or 6.
Yeah, I mean, it changed a lot. It wasn't just strictly X.
I actually thought about that earlier. I was like, damn, I wish there was a counter on Pro Football Focus or something like that would tell you, because I would bet that we actually only had 3 down linemen probably less than 30% of the time.
I wouldn't even be able to venture a guess, but yeah. And as much
maybe not 3 down, but 3 guys on the line alone.
And as much as I love to go back and watch games, I am not going to
We don't have that much time.
No.
That's 2 full years.
Maybe during the off season, when typically I'll take like a month off of this show, maybe I'll spend that month doing that. But no, probably that's not worth it.
So you named off some good ones there. I think the pipe dream for everybody
There's
right now.
There's a couple other ones again that I'm brain farting on, but yeah.
Well, I think the pipe dream right now for me would be Jim Leonard, just because we saw how tremendous he was at Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And it didn't seem to matter what players he had come in there. They were not getting superstar recruits, but they were putting dudes in the NFL left and right. There's all kinds of guys across all kinds of NFL rosters right now that he put in there. And he's young. He fits that mold of.
He knows the Big Ten.
He knows the Big Ten really, really well. He fits the mold of the motivator players coach. He can recruit. It's, that's the other thing I think too, when you look specifically at the Holgorsen stuff to kind of transition. That was the good news that came to us on Monday. Late in the afternoon was that Dana Holgorsen signs his 2-year contract. And it's really funny because the first thing he said in the press conference after the Iowa game was, I'm gonna take the weekend off. I haven't had a weekend off, blah, 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 blah. And then he didn't get to take the weekend off. Apparently he was doing contract negotiations.
Well, that's not really him. That's him and the agent.
That's his agent being like, "We good with this?"
Yeah,
it's Rhule's agent fighting with Rhule's.
My people will talk to your people.
Yeah.
They're gonna take the week.
call me while I'm on the beach.
Yeah, shit.
And I think that conversation was kind of like, how can we continue to fuck Houston?
After how different the offense looked just in those last 3 games, is anybody going to be upset about this hire? Are you?
I don't know of a single person that could be upset
That's
about
what I mean. Like, why even bother asking the question? Everybody's elated that he's going to be our offensive coordinator over the next 2 years.
Not everybody. There's a lot of people that are. I've seen a lot of, and I'm going to call them old heads, even though I'm kind of one of them now.
Other than the dumb air raid comments.
That's what I was about to say. The old heads that only remember him as the air raid guy under Mike Leach.
I'm sorry. Do we think that would be bad with our offensive weapons to throw the ball in
here's what I'm getting
impressive manner?
You don't do that in the Big Ten.
He was on the recruitment, the live recruitment show that Husker Sports Network did today. That was awesome, by the way. If you didn't get to catch it, it's 6 hours long, and there was a lot of content that was really only relevant in the moment while you were watching it live.
That's fine.
If you were keeping up with the signings today, but it's really good stuff. If you want to go out and check it out, it's all over YouTube. But Holgorsen did like probably 12 to 15 minutes on there. And he talked, he specifically was addressed, she asked him, she goes, there's a lot of people that are concerned about the air raid. How are you going to adapt that to the Big Ten, blah, blah, blah. He's like, I haven't really run the air raid in like 15 years.
Yeah.
And he talked about how during his time at West Virginia, he had to learn that like, there's just places that you can't run the air raid.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work. And he referenced them being north of the Mason-Dixon line. It just doesn't work. And he even talked about a season where their snap count, they ran a rush play almost 70% of the time. So for anybody that's out there that's concerned that he's not going to be able to do anything but throw the ball, if you look at some of the wide receivers and the quarterbacks that he's put in the league, that's awesome. But you also have to go look at some of the linemen and the running backs that he's thrown out there. And he's had some major rushers. He's had several guys go over 1,000 yard seasons on the ground. I'm not worried about that.
Yeah, I when people start talking about it in that sort of way, I just go, okay. I have nothing to say to you because you're not going to listen anyway.
Right.
You're not going to change your mind. You're not going to be open to any possibility of other than hearing air raid. And you're just going to lose your fucking shit.
Yeah, you just
like, okay.
It's one of those. You just don't argue with stupid people.
I'm done.
You also seem like you don't know what you're talking about.
That's like I said.
It's just, you know what? You're right. You're right.
Yeah,
as soon as you said those words, I stopped with my side and I came around. And now I'm on your side, so I don't have to have this conversation with you.
It's not worth it to me to have that conversation with you.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. You're excited.
Done.
You're excited. We're all
I'm very excited.
fucking excited.
Yeah.
Something that I thought was really interesting in what he was talking about today was when he referenced he went a little bit further on the play calling stuff, and he said, when I came in originally, looking at the playbook, I told Rhule I'm not going to be able to call this. So he wasn't he legitimately the first week he was here, he said it was either Wednesday or Thursday that first week was finally when he was like, you know what, okay, I can call these plays. He when the first 3 or 4 days he thought he wasn't going to be calling plays because he didn't think he could.
Yeah. He said that. He said that a few weeks ago. Yeah.
He said it was like I sat down and he said, yeah, Rhule came to me and was like, yeah, it's kind of like learning Chinese. Because all the plays are called in a different, they're all called something different than he's used to calling them.
He said that a couple of times. It was either after the Wisconsin game or maybe even after the Iowa game where he had trouble calling in certain plays because he didn't know the verbiage. He knew what play he wanted. He just didn't know the verbiage to use.
And he said that's where they burned a timeout in the Iowa game because of that. But he referenced it. He goes, yeah, there was a whole bunch of stuff in there. I just didn't understand why they were calling it.
Yeah.
Like the way he says, he's very Mike Leach blunt.
Mm-hmm.
And he says some stuff that I'm like, God, Satterfield has just got to be a really, really easygoing dude to sit and listen to him basically talk shit about him publicly and stay on staff.
Yep.
Because that's what Rhule said today. He was asked directly about Satterfield, and he said, yep, he'll continue to coach the tight ends. He's going to stay on staff.
Maybe that's just where it belongs.
And again, talking to the old heads that freak out over stupid little shit, don't worry. Satterfield will not be making $1.4 million as the tight ends coach. It will change. So fucking relax, you stupid. Anywho. It's so dumb. God, it's
the other big loss that's been out there has been Terrence Knighton leaving.
Yeah.
I know that's one that stings me really bad. It stings me worse. And from the sounds of it, it sounds like there's a couple other Terrence Knighton-like guys in waiting. That there's I can't remember his first name, but Oken is a name that I've heard from several people, including
Okun or what?
I think it's Oken.
Okay,
it's literally Oken.
I know who you're talking about.
OKEN or some shit like that. But he's also a former player, played in the NFL. Played for Matt Rhule.
Unfortunately, a Longhorn, but whatever.
He didn't play for Matt Rhule. He played at Texas.
Yeah,
he coached for Matt Rhule.
His first name's Frank.
There you go. But he's got an even more solid background than what Terrence Knighton had.
He looks like a Frank.
He looks equally terrifying.
But here's my thing about Terrence Knighton, right? Because he came in, he didn't really have any serious experience. He'd only ever been under Rhule.
Well, and he also was only an assistant defensive line coach, not like the defensive line coach.
Yeah. And my big thing is Rhule's a character guy, and Rhule's a guy that if he's going to make a hire on something, it's somebody that he believes that in his process and the way that he goes about things, that they're going to be a certain type of coach. So I fully believe whoever they're going to bring in for that, whoever the D coordinator is, obviously is going to get to pick their guys. Yep. But it's not like Rhule's not going to have a say in that.
Oh, no.
And there are a lot of very talented D-line coaches out there that would love to come coach at Nebraska, especially knowing the type of talent that we have here already and the guys that are going to be coming in.
Yep.
Not concerned about that at all.
No.
On the other side with the other announcement that we got today was the addition of, say his name because you said it all right.
I heard that it was DeKel.
DeKel, okay.
Which is way better than how I tried to pronounce it.
Well, it looks like it would be DeKel, but
I had like 8 syllables in there when I tried to say it.
Yeah.
So.
New wide receivers coach.
DeKel Shorts.
Yeah, DeKel Shorts.
Mr. Shorts.
He is a guy that I've already seen him compared to Garrett McGuire because he's 29, 30 years old, something like that. Oh, he's another young pup, blah, blah. First of all, he's not 23. There's a big difference between 23 and 29.
He also was on the top 30 under 30 coaches in the country.
Yeah.
So
he's a
highly regarded,
quickly rising star. Yes. He's already put, a little guy that a lot of people got super excited when Dana referenced Ja'Cory Barney as reminding him of Tank Dell. Mm-hmm. And he went on that little diatribe for, 5 minutes or whatever it was. His coach was
DeKel Shorts.
DeKel Shorts. I don't want to fuck his name up.
And I might be fucking up. This is just what I heard on the radio.
Well, the pronunciation that Keith Mann sent out was KEL in all caps.
Like
so that sounds like DeKel.
Yeah.
But I mean, the guy's got great accolades.
I like how Rhule is not fucking around with any time on this either. He's like, nope, he's at practice. He's going to help out the bowl game.
Yeah.
He's here.
Yeah, well, I mean, he played in the NFL. He played for Dana at West Virginia for 3 years, from 13 to 16. He ended up going to the Buffalo Bills. It was just a short stint. I believe he was just on the practice squad. But, I mean, the guy's got experience. He's got good playing experience. But then he was an assistant in West Virginia. The last year Dana was there, he followed him to to Houston, Director of player personnel. He's an amazing recruiter from what I understand. So that goes along hand in hand with Garrett McGuire. And then he was the wide receivers coach from 21 to 23. Tank Dell's wide receivers coach. Kind of a big deal.
And he basically was Dana basically told Rhule, like, that's the only guy I want.
That's my
just
one.
get him.
But that was also his one. I'm not doing this without him.
Yep.
That sort of thing. But the cool thing, too, that I heard was because Dana was the OC as well at Houston, he didn't have an actual coordinator there. He had an additional wide receivers coach. They had an outside wide receivers coach and an inside wide receivers coach. So this guy was the outside wide receivers coach / the primary, I guess, if you will, the primary position coach. And I don't know. It seems like he comes with a lot of experience. And then you throw in a year at Kentucky, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a dude that has 2 years under his belt at Kentucky, or 3 years under his belt, at Kentucky. 6'2", runs quick, scores a lot of points.
The kid who just went into the portal.
As soon as his coach announces he's hired.
If you weren't going to bring him up, I have his stat. In the 3 years at Kentucky, he has 1,800 yards, almost 1,900 receiving yards, 14 touchdowns. He led the team in the last 2 years in receiving yards and everything. So, yeah, he's...
it's not saying anything's guaranteed that he's coming here.
Absolutely not.
But kind of like Jamari Butler jumping in the portal when his coach left.
As far as Jamari Butler, I still wouldn't say definite with this guy specifically, but also with Jamari Butler or anybody else on the defense following Tony White, because like we've talked about before, it's not unlimited rosters anymore.
Right.
You still have to have a spot for him. So just because Jamari Butler's now jumping in doesn't automatically mean that he's going to Florida State or any of those, Prince Will or any of those other guys. James Williams is a different conversation. He's definitely going to Florida State.
Yeah,
But
he'll be a walk-on or whatever.
The other guys, you still have to have space for him in the 105. So we'll see. But
yeah, for me, it's a very interesting conversation now when you look at it. Again, just going with more that Rhule talked about at press conference. Something that I am going to definitely be more keen on doing is just listening when that dude says something negative or says that something bad's going to happen, because he tends to make everything sound good regardless of if it's good or bad. And we miss a lot of things that he's warning us about, and he's starting to cash in on a lot of I told you so's.
Well, because when he talks, we just go, it just makes us feel all tingly inside.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, please tell us another story.
Just like Steve posted on Twitter today and tagged us in. What up, Steve? And he posted, he's like, thanks for the story, Dad, or something like that. like he goes, after that press conference, I felt better. And it is, I mean, Rhule spoke for 38 minutes today. He definitely put a lot of questions to bed. He spoke at length about the search that's going into D coordinator when he talks about, obviously John Butler's a strong candidate. He's one of the candidates we're looking at. He said he's had interest from other Power 5 coordinators that are interested in coming to do the job.
I thought that comment was kind of interesting. He's like, people that are currently in other jobs.
In other Power 5 jobs. Which, that's cool. It might be the fucking guy from Rutgers. I don't know what it would be.
It might also just be Rhule talking.
It might be. You never know.
Well, and it could have just been a guy that called and said, hey, what's the deal with his job? And Rhule's like, yeah, thanks. It's, available, but we're not really interested. It could have just immediately been, it could be 1,000 different things.
I posed this question on our Twitter, and if there was some 180 people that voted on it or something like that, it was pretty overwhelming majority, yes. But some other interesting answers. I said the highest paid D coordinator in the country is at LSU. He's making 2.5. Are you guys afraid of that number?
Couldn't give a flying fuck about any money.
That's what I said.
Beat it. Double it.
Whatever it takes was kind of the overwhelming answer.
Money's not real at Nebraska.
That's kind of my point.
I don't care.
Especially if you're going to structure it the way, like Tony White wound up having to pay, it was an undisclosed amount, I believe, but he had a buyout on his contract if he wasn't leaving for a head coaching job.
It's like that one guy that commented on one of your posts about Holgorsen signing the 2-year deal for $1.2 million. It should only be a 1-year contract, and there should be language in there for year 2 if he leaves. Shut the fuck up. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
The money means nothing. Stop it.
Yeah.
Also, I didn't realize there were that many contract specialists in Nebraska.
Yeah. Well, it was that contract was, or that comment was even funnier because he was just trying to be a naysayer that we've only got him for 1 year.
Oh, shut up! You were just trying to be right.
Yeah, I had to laugh a little bit about it. It is what it like. Everybody is so in their feels, and I'll be honest, I was in my feels as soon as I heard the news about Tony White on Monday morning.
You?
But you gotta you had to back it down. And you had to realize that this is still just a football team. It's yes, it's something that we love doing
Absolutely.
and we love talking about and we love going out there for. But a guy on the Day by Day podcast, it's a newer Husker podcast. If you haven't checked them out yet, go out and check them out on YouTube. Give them a like and a subscribe. Give us a like and a subscribe while you're at it. But they made a really good point about, Rhule does a really good job. He's kind of the anti-Bo Pelini, whereas Bo Pelini was a hater on the fans. He got annoyed with the fans easily. He wasn't interested in it. He made a good point. This program doesn't exist without the fans.
Mm-hmm.
It's fan money that is paying all of this shit. And it's okay for us to expect something, but we also still need to realize that we're fans.
Yeah.
Like, we're not in control of shit.
No.
Regardless of whether, this is a collective effort that we are as fans. This is not my voice should mean something type of a thing.
Yeah,
But that said, we're right, you're wrong. I mean, come on.
Yeah, too many people think that they have a lot of power, and they actually don't.
On the coaching side of things, is there anything else you guys wanted to talk about? Is there anybody else you foresee leaving? Because they mentioned today, Garrett McGuire has the option to stay on staff. He's going to explore his options, and who knows if he stays or goes.
Yeah, I would be, I don't know if I'd say surprised. I think Garrett McGuire will stay in some form of fashion. I think I want him to stay, to be completely honest with you, because of his connections in Texas.
Yeah.
He'll be very beneficial for us continuing to recruit Texas. I think Holgorsen, I know Holgorsen's not going to be much of a recruiter because he hates recruiting. But his
boy that he's bringing in is a huge recruiter.
But also his name, with him being coaching in Houston for a couple of years, his name still holds weight. So you could just say his name and say, hey, call him, whatever. But having Garrett McGuire being able to have boots on the ground in Texas with the way he does, I think is a big factor to be able to hopefully keep here in some form or fashion, like I said. It's hard to answer that question because we don't know who the defensive coordinator is.
The rest of it, I was just going to say, the rest of it kind of depends on what happens with the D coordinator position. Because, like we talked about, if it isn't John Butler, that's somebody who I see leaving.
And honestly, as far as on the defensive side, as long as Dvorak stays, I don't really care.
I don't think he's going anywhere.
No, I don't either. But Dvorak's my guy, so I just want him to stay.
When Rhule was on the recruitment show before his press conference, that question kind of came along in the form of, she didn't ask it as, is he here for sure? It was more of we know you've got the linebacker situation taken care of, but as far as everybody else, how do you see that shaking out? And he didn't even acknowledge the linebacker portion of that. It was like, yep, no, he's here. We've all seen what he's been doing.
He's my man.
Anybody that wants to, come bring on a different linebackers coach, you might be a little out of your depth.
It might be the Holgorsen situation where White or Rhule tells the new defense coordinator, you can pick one, but it can't be the linebacker position.
You can pick a lot.
That's mine.
This is mine.
Who knows if Dvorak would be just as good coaching another position group? I don't know. Because, a lot of those guys, they don't stay on one position as they come through the coaching ranks.
Yeah.
Especially if he wants to move up and be a D coordinator, he might need to coach the line or coach the DBs at some point.
Yep.
But
as long as he's on the staff, I don't give a shit.
Yeah, I don't care either. As long as he's here. As long as possible.
On the coaching side of things, I think we're kind of just in wait and see mode. Because he said, Butler's obviously in the running for it, but when he was asked directly about a timeline, and here's why I don't think it's Butler. Matt Rhule, every single time there's been a coaching change or a coaching issue, if you will, he had, before his first game even kicked off, he had, what's his name, the tight ends guy, the high school coach that he hired from Texas. Wager had that problem. He had an answer for that the next day. He had all the stuff came out about Evan Cooper. Within 24 hours, we had a press conference, and he had an answer about that the next day. He had Butler ready to go.
Do you think the bowl game's a tryout for him?
I don't know if it honestly is much of a tryout. I think it's more of a stalling tactic because I think Rhule has his eye on a guy that's still coaching either at a school that is in the playoff or at an NFL team that's not going to be done playing for a while.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason that I say that, because it's so out of character for him to not have an answer. Because he has, you talked about building your network. He has a tremendous network.
Yep.
And then he's added Dana Holgorsen's network to that.
Especially, some of the guys that we mentioned, or I mentioned, don't have jobs right now. as far as the Jim Leonard has a job, but Ryan Walters, Jeff
He has
Collins,
a good job.
stuff like that. Yeah, but those guys don't have a job, so technically they could be hired right now. But then he talked about how there were other current working defensive coordinators that were calling. Well, they might still have work to do. So they're not going to take the call just yet or make the jump just yet. So who knows?
Somebody made a comment about a co-defensive coordinator for Oregon. And I couldn't figure it out. I tried to find it today about who it was. They're like, oh, this co-defensive coordinator at Oregon coached with Matt Rhule at Carolina. And I was like, I can't find it. I don't know what it is. I did some digging earlier. I couldn't find it. So if you can find it, cool, more power to you. But
I'll look.
If there's a guy on Oregon staff, I'll take just about anybody from fucking Oregon staff. Because Dan Lanning.
Can he bring Phil Knight with him?
Dan Lanning might make me an Oregon fan, like a closet Oregon fan.
Dan Lanning is fun.
He is everything that Kirby Smart is fiery, but he's got some tact to him. And he's also motivational, not just scary. But moving off of all the coaching talk just a little bit while you're kind of looking for that a little bit. Today was an exciting signing day. I mean, I don't think it can be. It's funny to look at where we were just 2 years ago and looking at our signing classes and things like that were coming in. We signed a 4-star quarterback out of California that's a quasi-dual threat guy that's got high accolades, and he's the third Elite 11 quarterback we've signed in the last 2 cycles. We'd signed 2 total prior to that. Neither one of them had worked out. One of them played, I think, Jebby played half a season, didn't he?
He was in and out, yeah.
Yeah, whatever. But neither one of them really worked out. But TJ Lateef adding him today, he's also a little bit more the style of what Dana Holgorsen might like to do because Dana Holgorsen likes a guy that's got some wheels to him. And a lot of people have talked about with him staying on, is Raiola going to learn how to run just a little bit? Is he going to maybe shed a couple pounds? You never know on that side of things. I don't think you really mess with a guy like Raiola that comes so pre-built, but you never know. TJ Lateef is a great guy to be bringing in, and from what Rhule made it sound like in his press conference today, he'd be comfortable rolling into the season with Heinrich Harburg in a different position and TJ Lateef being our backup. Yeah. I don't think that's ideal. I think you want to bring in a transfer guy.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's possible. That's out there. I think that Rhule's going to try and maximize having to cut down to 105 roster spots. I think he's going to maximize it literally every position.
Well, and that's kind of the question. So you move down to, we've talked about over the last handful of years as far as how many scholarship quarterbacks do you have on the roster? And it's anywhere between 4 and 5. I know Scott Frost wanted 5 and all that stuff. But with a roster of only 105, how many can you really have?
That number just shifts. It's now 3 or 4.
Yeah. So it's kind of, I mean, you still might have that Jalen Gramstad play his last year. He's still making his decision whether or not. I'm not trying to say that he should be a viable option or whatever. I'm just talking about guys on the roster. That's all I'm talking about.
I'm with you on that, but I don't know that he's going to get that option. Because when you look at the massive number of guys that Rhule basically has to say, guys, my hands are tied, you have to leave.
Yeah.
When he talked about the quarterbacks today in his press conference, he referenced Harburg no longer being a part of the quarterback room and us rolling into the season potentially with 2 quarterbacks.
He said we're looking for a third quarterback.
Yeah, at no point was he.
Well, he was asked about
Gramstad.
And when asked about Gramstad, he said he still has the decision to make as far as whether or not he wants to continue to play football or so
I got you.
That's all I'm saying. He was at least brought up. He was talked about, but but again, the question is how many quarterbacks can you really have on the roster?
Yeah.
And also then it goes back to trying to pick up a quarterback in the portal and how many of them want to basically have a guaranteed spot on the bench. Most of those quarterbacks that are in the portal want to play.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's going to be tough to find a quarterback that's been willing to sit behind Raiola.
Well, and that kind of takes us to the Danny Kaelin thing. I'm happy for him to be leaving.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a Danny Kaelin fan.
Really? Since when?
I know. I texted
you
weird
hard on for him the entire time he's been here.
I texted
I would have thought you were his dad.
Saying,
his dad doesn't talk about him as highly as BJ does.
Yeah, and I won't be talking about him past this, but I wish the kid all the best. I think he's going to be a good college quarterback.
He will start somewhere.
Yeah, it's not very often you're going to get a guy that still has 4 years of eligibility left. And
we just signed a bunch of kids with at least 4 years of eligibility left.
I'm talking about with a year under him, under his belt, watching good quarterback play. The class that we signed today, like I said, starting with TJ Lateef, he stayed steady and true the entire time. Some of these guys, they were questioning, and honestly, I thought our class was going to fall apart when Tony White was leaving. Rhule talked about that today in his press conference, how he makes it a point in their recruiting process to make sure that they're touched by as much of the staff, not just the coaches, but all of the staff when it comes to, strength and conditioning, dietary, everything. They want them to feel like family when they get in here so that family knows and so that the kids know that it's not just if one guy walks out the door, it's not just that.
Yep.
And I think you saw that at work today because very easily, Dawson Merritt was committed to Alabama. He was fully committed to Alabama until like 3 or 4 weeks ago.
But the big thing is, as soon as the Tony White news came out, he and his dad were all over Twitter. Like, we're not going anywhere.
Oh yeah.
So that was very beneficial. Put a lot of people at ease in that aspect too. So
yeah. Well, I think that probably spoke some volumes to the rest of the class a little bit.
Yeah,
because all those dudes are talking.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way in hell that Dawson Merritt and Christian Jones didn't have a conversation about how they could be wrecking shop in that.
Yep.
In Rob Dvorak's room.
Yep.
Well, that's kind of the thing is Rob Dvorak's still going to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Christian Jones, they're kind of eyeing him maybe to play more inside. Dawson Merritt, it sounds like he might be the new Prince Umamielen. Kind of take his spot. Him and Vincent Shavers kind of running that jack spot.
We need somebody out there with all those guys leaving.
Yeah.
I mean, whether it's Butler,
Umamielen's going to be yelling from a different neighborhood.
Yeah.
You mean you look at the way that Vincent Shavers and I keep forgetting his name,
McGahee,
Willis McGahee Jr. The way those two dudes were coming on and getting so much more play the last few games of the season, I just don't know. Somebody said it on the radio on Monday afternoon, I think right after the news broke that he was leaving. Or maybe it was yesterday. I can't remember one way or the other.
Who was leaving?
That Umamielen was leaving.
Okay.
But that he almost, he had such a great freshman year, and then he almost seemed disinterested this year. Like there was that little bit of does he want it all the way?
From the little things that I had heard it was kind of like he had a lot of off-field stuff that he didn't really keep in line. I take that more as grades things.
I was gonna say getting to class and stuff.
Just taking care of small responsibility things that turn into big responsibility things. So it was kind of more of that he didn't have his mind right in certain things. Kind of what we were talking about with the weight stuff. If you're not exactly at your weight, then you're not playing. Yeah. And if you're not doing the right thing off the field, then you're not playing the way that you want to. So
right.
I think it was a lot of that stuff too.
Yeah. He's another guy that I was very, very high on. Matt was very, very high on after his freshman year. This year he just kind of was meh.
Yeah.
His first year he wrecked shop.
Yeah.
This year we didn't hear his name hardly at all.
He was a freshman All-American last year.
Yeah.
He was fucking awesome.
Lenhart.
Yeah.
Cam Lenhart didn't have a bad year, but he didn't have the next step forward that we thought. Maybe it was a sophomore slump.
Cam Lenhart was still more impactful this year than Umamielen was.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. He played a lot more, too.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what he looks like slid into that starting role and getting those reps. I'm very excited to see him and Riley Van Poppel, what those guys are going to do, but we got to get a new D-line coach in here for that.
And then keeping Elijah Judy there. I know I saw there's a guy on defense for Michigan State that jumped in the portal, and apparently he played with Judy. Well, I don't know if I didn't look too into it, whether or not they played together at A&M or maybe played together in high school or whatever else. Yeah. And Elijah Judy tweeted to him, let's get the duo back together.
Yep.
Or something like that.
Yep.
It's like, okay, come on down.
He said something similar to another one of his teammates from high school that just went in the portal from West Virginia.
Okay.
And it was something about, Northeast guys love Nebraska or something like that. I don't even remember what it was, but because I think he's kind of from that Jersey area, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't remember. I know. I think he was from the Philly area type.
Philly, Jersey, right there.
Or whatever, but
the other guys that I'm super excited about in this class, obviously the Cortez Mills flip. If you didn't see what he did for his I guess announcement today. Yeah, the word was escaping me. Excuse me. It was freaking hilarious. It was him and two of the other big time dudes that were making announcements this morning at his high school, and he went second. And he passes the mic. He does this, whatever. He stands up, takes off his school shirt, and he's got an OU shirt on, and he puts his OU hat on. He goes, "Yep, for the next 4 years, I'll be spending at Oklahoma. Go Sooners!" And he sits down and puts the ball cap on. Looks like he's about to pass the mic off. He goes, "Wait a second, this shirt don't feel right." He got up and he took his shirt off, just had a wife beater on, and pulled this Husker sweatshirt out from below. Oh my God. If the Oklahoma-Nebraska rivalry was still going hot, that would have been like straight fire. Everybody would have been talking about it. It still was one of the best flips that I've ever seen like that, but it was so funny. And he was trolling him last night on Twitter, posting his OU stuff, and it was pretty funny. But I think that him and Isaiah Mosey both, and Mosey, his dad, it sounds like they're trying to find a way to get him actually on the field coaching as well. Sounds like potentially on the wide receiver side, but those two dudes I think are ones that we could see be impactful, like a Ja'Cory Barney right away in year one. Same type of deal out of Dawson Merritt and Christian Jones, and I heard the same thing today about maybe the potential of that Jeremiah Jones, the athlete that we were scared was going to flip to Missouri, something like that midday. Sounded like Rhule had to go to work himself to close that one down here.
I actually heard this morning that he was going to sign with Missouri.
Yeah,
like before he signed with Nebraska, I was like, okay, well,
there was a crystal ball. Steve Wilfong was a Fong bomb, put in a crystal ball that he was flipping to Missouri at like 9:45, and at like 10:15 he put in a 70% chance of going to Nebraska, and everybody on Twitter is going like, wait, what the fuck is happening?
Would you make up your fucking mind?
I'm seeing posts like in simultaneous, like being reshared. It doesn't happen. But him and that Cade, I think it's Petrak from North Dakota. Apparently that kid is just like Polar Bear 2.0, but even taller. And a little bit more slim, but they said that the competition level might be something that's questioning, but he's coming in with the body built and ready to go.
Tim 6'5", 240 is pretty solid.
Well, and Tim Verghese said that he thinks he's probably running about 20 to 25 pounds heavier than that already, because that's a preseason weight that's listed on the link, and that he looks like he is ready and built ready to go. But the one thing he pointed out about him was that he's got that first step factor, that first step, they talked about in Ndamukong Suh. They did the whole sports science thing on ESPN that he has that twitch that faster than anybody else. Said he's got that, and talked about how that's not a coachable factor. That's just an inherent thing. Kind of got me excited talking about him, and he was a guy that I hadn't heard too much about. Is there anybody else in this class that gets you guys super, super going?
Juju Marks, just looking at his size, it's ridiculous. He's 6'7" for an interior offensive lineman.
Yeah.
Honestly, my biggest thing about the class is I kind of go back to what I said last year with our signing class, where we had 5 states where we got the number 1 player in the state. And again, people can say, "Oh, there's no players in those states, South Dakota, North Dakota." Fine, whatever. They got the number 1 player in these states. Today, they got 4 of the number 1 players in states. The big thing is it's Colorado, Nebraska, North Dakota, South Dakota. And what the big thing is everybody likes to talk about when they talk about recruiting at Nebraska is the 500-mile radius. It's exactly what they're doing right now. They're dominating the 500-mile radius. So when you're getting those types of players from that 500-mile radius, that's a big deal here.
Absolutely.
So
here with our fans, 1,000%.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So doing stuff like that is a big deal to me. As far as the recruiting class, I mean, I really haven't been too caught up in a lot of these guys other than the Cortez Mills situation and the Dawson Merritt. I will look into them later on, but I am so much more focused on who we are going to get in the transfer portal, because I think those are going to be bigger factors for 2025.
Absolutely.
Yes, there will be a couple of guys that will be factors. We already talked about them as true freshmen, but Rhule we're going to need so much more for the transfer portal. I am so much more focused on that than I am on this right now.
Rhule referenced in his press conference that he envisioned kind of a 7 on offense and 7 on defense. That was kind of where his number was in his brain.
Somebody said that Holgorsen said that they want to bring in 30 to 50 guys as far as for visits.
He said I'll have 20 to 30 guys walk through for a visit.
But they want to sign about 15, about 7 on each side.
If we can pull in another, Banks and Nair aren't necessarily great examples because they didn't wind up panning out that well.
Mm.
Banks was up and down. Yeah. He was up for the last game or the last 2 games, but if we could bring in the kid from Kentucky that's already been coached by the guy, just bring in at least one senior style, sure-handed catcher, throw him alongside Ja'Cory Barney and let these other 2 young guys get Mosey and Cortez Mills. Maybe because of this talent we had coming in, maybe that was a little bit more of a writing on the wall for Malachi Coleman. Hey, I'm not going to get surpassed by dudes that are coming in that are already better than me.
So what positions do you guys think are the biggest needs in the transfer portal?
Well, the only other position that I think on the offensive side of things that I don't think we have somebody ready to take their spot, because the O-line, I really want to see what spring ball is going to look like. But I think we've got a lot of dudes that are better, higher end guys to play those on all across the line than what we had playing this year. And since this will be their 4th year now under Raiola, or some of them, it's only their 2nd or their 3rd. But I think we've got good guys there. Gatula and what he was able to come in and do, it took him a game or 2 to really get up to speed. But by the end of the season,
tell him to stop ball starting.
Well, that's fine. And it did show in the end of the Iowa game that they were like, because they kept running Mazuka out there for basically the whole 4th quarter. Mm-hmm. But we saw good stuff from him. Mm-hmm. And we know that there's guys that are out there that are going to be able to step into those spots. I think you could potentially see a center being a need. I think I could, if they end up doing what I hope they do, which is kick Fedoni to the curb, I could see a tight end. But I think 1 or 2 wide receivers, a big body wide receiver, because the guys we're bringing in aren't. But running back on the offensive side of the ball, I realize I kind of just named everything because we already talked about how we need a backup quarterback.
We're definitely running out of positions.
Yeah. I'm really excited about that. Jamarian Parker, the St. Louis running back that's coming in. 6 foot, 185. They said they want to put like 15 pounds on him, but I guess he's like lightning. They're very excited about his potential to be able to play early. Outside of that, I think you definitely have to go, unless Emmett Johnson's really exactly what Holgorsen wants. If he's going to show the type of quickness that he had in the Wisconsin game all year long consistently, cool, you can be a number 1 back. Are we going to get that consistency? What do you think?
I don't see why we wouldn't. I mean, he's super young and he's only still learning.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't he? Or why couldn't we expect that?
Yeah, you're right. What else do you see us having a hole and being in need?
Well, I don't really know. I'm not saying no on where, if you're talented enough, I want you. I don't really care what position you are. But
he wants you.
Yes. Outside of the one Kentucky receiver, I don't really know that we need many more receivers because of who we have in there now. Like, look at all the young guys that played this year at wide receiver, even outside of Naor and Banks. They're going to be back next year.
Lloyd.
Lloyd, Bonner, Ja'Cory Barney.
Crazy to think Lloyd's going to be a junior next year.
We've got Quinn Clark and Keelan Smith that everybody loves, who redshirted this year. We've got the Mills. And other, who's the other receiver?
Mosey.
Mosey. Like, we've got dudes right now that are super young. And again, with the whole 105, and I might be overreacting on the 105 roster thing, but how many more guys can you really bring in that are going to see the field? I don't know. I'd love to have the Kentucky guy, but we'll see.
That's the thing you really have to be focused on is if you're bringing somebody in, are they going to be impactful this coming year? Yeah. Otherwise, why are you bringing them in? Because you got good guys already.
Exactly. Well, I also think you have to hit on them. Yeah. They have to hit. They can't be taking these Isaiah Nayers anymore and having them not hit. Mm-hmm. Stop wasting, like, with the 105, the way that Rhule wants to run his program, you can't waste a spot on a dude that hasn't played ball in a year and a half because of injuries, and you just don't know what he is.
Yeah.
You can't. Unfortunately, that would have cut an IGC. That would have cut an Air. Like, those types of guys at big boy programs, you're not going to be able to take a flyer on something like that now.
I think my biggest need in the portal would probably be somewhere in the secondary. I saw that produced that Thieneman entered the portal.
Oh, yeah.
Dylan Thieneman. I mean, that'd be a pipe dream in my opinion, because I think he's going to go probably somewhere south and get paid a shit ton of fucking money.
Probably.
Because he's really fucking
We
good.
can come in and get paid a decent amount of money here.
I know. I'm just saying.
The 1890 Project is not afraid to pay people.
I'm not saying they are. I'm just saying in a general sense. I think getting an experienced guy in the secondary would be a big deal in the portal, considering the youth that we still have in that backfield back there.
Yeah.
I think that's my biggest thing. Obviously, we can say offensive line, we can say defensive line, but the thing is, with those two spots, everybody wants those type guys.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying that everybody doesn't want all the other type guys too, but those are like the biggest ones. They are gone first.
That's another thing for me. It's where how impactful are they going to be in their first year if they're coming into a unit where you have to gel with 4 other guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough. But we saw that with Ben Scott, and he did great. So, I mean,
I'm not saying it's not possible,
Yes.
but it's got to be the right
absolutely.
fit.
Yeah.
And when you're competing with that many other spots, like I couldn't agree with you more on like a D-back.
Yeah.
We just need something back there, kind of like I say, all right.
Mhm.
You need somebody who can come in and do their thing.
Yeah, I think that should be the biggest priority in the transfer portal. But we'll see.
I wouldn't mind taking a big ass D lineman too.
Well, again, that would be
big
great.
ass
Yeah.
dude.
But those guys are on everybody's
If they're
top board.
good,
That's
we want
what-
them, just like Jed said. I know Rhule said he wants around 15 guys from the portal. I don't see that happening every year.
Well,
No. He wasn't talking about every year. He was
No.
talking about this specific roster, which tells me in his mind he kind of has an idea of already where those holes are that he knows he's not going to get filled with freshmen that are coming in.
Yeah.
And that he doesn't think guys
He
are gonna be
knows where
ready.
the holes won't be filled.
And we keep talking about the last couple of weeks with this 105 stuff where we have to get rid of like 50 guys. Realistically, we have to get rid of like 60 to 70 guys.
Well, you got to remember that
Seniors are
there's
leaving.
30 seniors that are coming off.
I'm
the
just
roster.
talking about in an overarching entire thing, because the part of the 150 includes the seniors. I'm just talking about one way or the other. Like
Rhule kind of broke it down on the
closer
number.
to 70 people
We have to
need
get down
go.
to 70.
Yeah.
Well, because you're bringing in 21 freshmen, and those you can't cut.
Yeah.
those are done. You can't send them to the transfer portal after they sign now.
Yeah.
But he also made a point that they are going to get. There's 14 of them that are early enrollees that they are going to get on campus to practice next
They're
week.
going to try to, yeah.
Yeah.
They're
He
still going
thinks they're
through
gonna be able to go to the
paperwork
bowl
and
And
all
they're
that.
going to do everything they can to get them to the bowl game,
Yeah.
even the guys that are injured.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Well,
Just
just,
looking
to be able to go, that'd be fun for the fucking kid.
yeah. Just looking at the guys that
Hey,
I'm
you want to
seeing.
spend a week in Nashville with us?
Oh, it's
A lot of people are saying the Pinstripe Bowl.
yeah. A
now.
lot of
Hey, you want
people
to spend a week in New York with us?
Apparently, the way that the selection committee stuff came out on Tuesday night, last night. Apparently, that shifted all the odds to us going to the Pinstripe for
I
whatever
just
reason.
would like to point out that I said Pinstripe
You
Bowl
did.
last week.
You
and
did?
You guys both laughed at me.
I did not laugh. I just disagreed.
Everybody should know by now that I'm better at predicting things than these
I
guys
also
are.
completely forgot that that whole thing where I said the common consensus before the Iowa game was the winner goes to Tampa, the loser goes to Nashville. I forgot that was with Michigan beating Ohio State. That throws everything out of whack. That was based on Michigan also losing to Ohio State.
Right.
and Ohio
So-
State playing in the Big Ten championship.
So Michigan winning that game just bumps them up some more on the hierarchy of both, and then it just shifts a lot of things around. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't really have anything else on today other than that I'm oddly optimistic after
What?
a bunch of negativity to start the week. You know, Nebraska football keeps doing this to me, man. It's like I start the week shitty as fuck, and then by Wednesday, it's like, all right, here we go.
No, Nebraska
We're gonna be
football does
good.
that to all of us.
Except for Matt, he somehow picks
No.
them right.
It's like that story I said, but with my cousin at the USC game where he's like, fuck this sucks. Why do they do this to me every fucking week and blah, blah. And then he stopped himself. He goes, by Wednesday, I'm going to pick them to win.
Nailed it. I think Matt Rhule is going to have to start like charging people for helping them out with like their heart conditions and calming everybody down and taking everybody, bringing them back down and letting them breathe a little bit because he really does just calm everybody down in his press conferences.
Did you just listen to the press conference or actually see it?
I watched it, yeah. Well, I mean, it was on. I was kind of doing some stuff in my room. I was in and out, yeah.
Did he look oddly calm to you today compared to the last like 4 or 5 times we've seen him?
I mean,
he wasn't prepping for a game.
I don't know if it was odd that he was calm because, like what Matt just said, he was before and or after a game that has.
And he just signed a class. Like he just hit a lot of deadlines where he could breathe a little bit.
He signed a top 20 class too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
He was coming down the stretch of a 1-5 season in the last 6 games of the season.
Yeah.
He's gonna be oddly stressed for those before and after those games.
I'm with you on that.
I don't think it was a surprise. I mean, yeah, he's going to be a little more relaxed. Yeah, I would hope so.
If he wasn't more relaxed, then I'd give him some of his own videos to listen to. Yeah. He's kind of like listening to Morgan Freeman. He just makes you feel better.
Good shit. If you haven't yet, like, subscribe, follow. We appreciate you guys.
And this may be the most unbelievable night in Cornhusker football history.